everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because honestly, we are looking at one of the most remarkable figures of the 20th century. We're going to focus on a man whose life literally bridges two entirely different worlds. And the whole shebang revolves around this unsolved historical mystery that still captivates people almost 100 years later. The guy at the center of it all? Sadhu Sundar Singh. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture it, it's 1929. A man walks into the totally unforgiving, freezing terrain of the Himalayas and just vanishes. Without a single trace, no confirmed record of his death was ever found. He was journeying toward Tibet, which is a notoriously difficult and isolated region, and he simply never returned. So to understand why he was out there and why his disappearance became so legendary, we really have to understand who this man was. To do that, let's first define what a sadhu actually is. A sadhu is a traditional Indian holy man. They're the ones you typically see wearing those distinct saffron robes, traveling with almost zero possessions, and committing to a super strict lifestyle of simplicity and devotion. But the man who vanished wasn't just your everyday ascetic. No way. He was this incredibly unique figure who somehow successfully bridged Eastern culture and the Christian faith. How did that even happen? Let's start with his early days. Section 1. From Hostility to Vision. The dramatic origin story of a relentless seeker. Let's move to and see how this builds. Sundar Singh was born way back in 1889 in Patiala, India, to a very wealthy Sikh family. He was exposed early on to Hindu and Sikh philosophies. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just exposure. He was deeply immersed in them. By his early teens, he was incredibly hostile toward Christian missionaries. He openly mocked their teachings. But then, at age 15, he was overcome by this crushing spiritual despair. He essentially resolved that if he couldn't find ultimate spiritual truth, he was going to end his own life. Well, according to his own testimony, in the very early hours of December 18, 1904, he experienced a complete, life-altering vision of Jesus Christ. As you can imagine, this sudden, dramatic conversion came at a massive personal cost. It totally shocked his family and the local community. He faced intense, crushing resistance and severe rejection from his very own relatives. They put immense pressure on him to just abandon this new faith. Yet, instead of caving in, Sundar found that this intense persecution actually deepened his dependence on God. It completely solidified his resolve. Which leads to a really pivotal choice. Section 2, donning the saffron robe, rejecting Western customs to authentically reach India. And this brilliantly illustrates the intellectual core of his entire legacy. See, at the time, Western missionaries typically wore their foreign clothing, kept their imported customs, and, naturally, were viewed as complete outsiders by the local population. Sundar Singh, he completely flipped the script. As a Christian sadhu, he put on the traditional saffron robe, traveled entirely barefoot, and lived a life that was deeply, authentically Indian. His overarching message was bold and honestly a real game changer. Following Jesus does not require abandoning your cultural identity. This is absolutely crucial even today. He proved that spirituality didn't mean you had to import some foreign culture. Instead, he showed it was a faith that could be naturally woven right into the beautiful fabric of Indian lifestyle and heritage. So what did this look like in practice? Section 3, Perilous Missionary Journeys, taking the message to the harshest corners of the Himalayas. Seriously, just picture this. Sundar walking immense, physically grueling distances across India, Nepal, Kashmir, and Tibet, completely barefoot. He constantly battled freezing mountain winds and blistering desert heat. He was actively seeking out these remote, isolated villages to share his message, often running right into intense, direct resistance from anti-missionary groups, especially in Tibet. The sheer physical courage it took to keep going back into those hostile environments, it's mind-blowing. But he wasn't just wandering the mountains forever. Section 4, Global Icon and Mystic. The Sadhu speaks to the world. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the staggering scale of his reach. Audiences around the world were absolutely captivated by him. He was invited to speak to massive, fascinated crowds, traveling to England, the United States, Australia, all over Europe. People were drawn in not just by his powerful testimony, but by his incredibly authentic appearance. Plus, he authored some highly influential books, like At the Master's Feet, With and Without Christ, and Visions of the Spiritual World. Through his speaking and writing, you really get to hear his historical voice. Just listen to this thoughtful core teaching. The gospel is not a religion. It is the good news of salvation through Jesus Christ. Notice how he intentionally focused on a personal relationship with God, rather than getting bogged down in rigid religious structures. He heavily emphasized deep internal communion. He told people prayer is not asking, it is a longing of the soul. He challenged his listeners to stop treating prayer like some daily checklist and to move toward a much deeper, profound connection. And he took that idea even further, stating, "It is better to be in the heart of God without words than on your knees with wandering thoughts." While some folks later debated the specifics of his mystical visions over the years, his sheer sincerity, his profound humility, and that incredibly rich prayer life of his were universally recognized by anyone who met him. Which brings us full circle. Section 5, The Apostles' Enduring Legacy, the unsolved end of a globally inspiring journey. 1929. Just as a quick reminder, this is the exact year Sadhu Sundar Singh walked right back into that highly dangerous, resistant region toward Tibet. And as we mentioned at the very beginning, he was never seen again. He simply passed out of recorded history and straight into legend. So, the crucial point is, when we look back at his impact, it's truly multidimensional. For evangelism, he became one of India's most influential historical witnesses. As a cultural bridge, he successfully harmonized the Christian faith with an authentic Indian lifestyle, completely transforming how missions were perceived. And as an inspiration, he remains this powerful global symbol of courage, simplicity, and absolute devotion. He proved that answering a profound spiritual calling doesn't mean you have to leave your heritage behind. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. How can faith and cultural identity truly coexist in our modern world? It's a huge challenge that Sadhu Sundar Singh answered with his very life. And it's a question that continues to spark curiosity all over the globe today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this structured journey through his life sparked your curiosity as much as it did mine. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.